Welcome to Talk About It in English. Let's build the English you need for real life. Today, we are going out of the classroom and building a survival system for the most dangerous 10 seconds in any English conversation. You are at a coffee break, you meet a stranger, and you ask, "Where are you from?" They say, "Germany." You say, "Nice," and then nothing. Just dead, agonizing silence and that sudden, desperate feeling of wanting to escape the room.
I used to actually hide in the bathroom during conference breaks because I thought I needed perfect grammar and fascinating stories to keep an English conversation going.
In the next few minutes, you will learn the echo and ask method, which gives you 3 simple phrases to catch any statement and bounce the conversation right back, so you never have to stand in awkward silence again.
That feeling of wanting to escape the room is something I know entirely too well. When you are learning English, especially when you reach that A2 or B1 level where you understand a lot but speaking still feels like a heavy lift, small talk feels terrifying. You feel this immense pressure to perform. You feel like you are on a stage and the spotlight is directly on you.
Exactly, and that pressure creates a massive psychological block. We call it the fascinating story myth. So many learners believe that to be fluent or to have a good conversation, they need to be an entertainer. They think they need to have a brilliant opinion on current events or a hilarious story about their flight or a deep philosophical thought ready to go.
And because you were translating in your head, trying to find the perfect vocabulary word, your brain just shuts down. I remember being at a hostel in London years ago. I was sitting in the common room and an Australian guy sat down next to me. We did the basic introduction. I told him my name, he told his. I asked where he was from, and he said Sydney. I smiled, nodded, and said, "Oh, cool." Then my mind went completely blank. I sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. I was sweating, my heart was racing, and I was desperately searching my brain for any English vocabulary related to Australia. Kangaroos, the opera house, nothing came out. I eventually just pretended to get a phone call and walked away.
I think every single person listening right now has faked a phone call or suddenly decided they desperately needed another coffee just to escape that exact silence. But here's the secret that changes everything. You do not need to be interesting. You just need to be interested. It's a fundamental psychological fact that human beings love talking about themselves. Your only job in small talk is to be a good mirror.
When I finally realized that, it took so much weight off my shoulders. I did not have to be a storyteller, I just had to be an interviewer. I just had to keep the ball in their court. And that's exactly what the echo and ask method does. It's a system designed to make the other person do 80% of the talking while you do 20% of the guiding.
We are going to break this method down into 3 specific steps. Step 1 is the reaction, Step 2 is the safe bridge, and Step 3 is the return serve. Let us start with Step 1, the reaction. The reason that awkward silence happens is because your brain needs time to process what the other person just said, translate it, and formulate a response. You need to buy yourself 2 extra seconds without leaving a dead silence.
When that Australian guy told me he was from Sydney, my response was just, "Oh, cool." Then I stopped speaking. That's a dead end. What you need instead is a reaction phrase. A reaction phrase is a tiny 2 or 3-word sentence that catches the information they threw at you and shows that you are actively listening. Our go-to phrases here are, "Oh, really?" "No way," or "That makes sense."
Let's look closely at "oh, really." It seems so simple, but the magic is entirely in your intonation. If you say it with a flat voice, dropping your pitch at the end, it sounds like you are bored or even sarcastic. Listen to the difference. "Oh, really?" That shuts the conversation down. But if you raise your pitch, stretch the word really out just a little bit, and raise your eyebrows, it instantly sounds warm and inviting. "Oh, really?"
Let's practice that together.
Wherever you are right now, walking to work, washing the dishes, I want you to speak out loud. I'm going to tell you a simple fact, and I want you to react with, "Oh, really?" using that rising, interested intonation. Ready? I'm actually moving to a new apartment next week.
Oh, really? Notice how my voice went up at the end? Let's try another reaction phrase. That makes sense. This is an incredibly powerful phrase for A2 and B1 learners because it works in almost any context where someone is explaining a situation, a problem, or a decision. It validates their experience. It makes them feel heard.
I use "that makes sense" all the time. If someone says, "I am so exhausted today because my flight was delayed by 4 hours," you do not need to construct a complex sentence about aviation or express deep sympathy. You just look at them, nod slowly, and say, "That makes sense." Try it right now. I will give you the prompt. "Man, I have to work late tonight because we have a massive project deadline tomorrow."
That makes sense. By using these reaction phrases, you have successfully caught the ball. You have avoided the immediate awkward silence. But you cannot stop there, or the silence will just return 2 seconds later. This brings us to step 2 of the method, the safe bridge.
The safe bridge solves the biggest panic moment in small talk, which is the panic of ignorance. What happens when someone tells you where they are from or what they do for a living, and you know absolutely nothing about it? If someone says they are from a tiny village in Scotland and you have no idea where that is, your instinct is to panic because you have nothing to add to the conversation.
That is exactly where you use the safe bridge. The most bulletproof phrase you can learn for this situation is, "I have never been, but I have heard great things about it." This phrase is a masterpiece of conversational English. It is polite, it shows goodwill, it keeps the positive momentum going, and most importantly, it requires zero actual geographical knowledge.
It is the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. You are admitting you don't know much about it, but you are framing it in a completely positive way. Let us look at the pronunciation, because we want this to sound smooth and natural, not robotic. When native speakers say this, they do not pronounce every single word clearly. They do not say, "I have never been." They squish the first 2 words together. I've never been.
And then notice the second half of the phrase, "but I've heard great things about it." The words heard, great, and things all link together smoothly. Let us practice shadowing this phrase. Don't worry about reading it, just trust your ears and your mouth. We will do it in 2 parts. First part, I've never been. Say it out loud.
I've never been.
Good. Now the second part, but I've heard great things about it. Say it out loud.
But I've heard great things about it.
Now let us put it all together with a smooth rhythm. I've never been, but I've heard great things about it. Your turn.
I've never been, but I've heard great things about it. This bridge does not just work for travel or geography. You can adapt it slightly for almost any topic. If someone tells you they work as a data analyst and you have no idea what a data analyst actually does on a daily basis, you can say, "I have never worked in that field, but I have heard it's really challenging." You just replaced the word been with worked, and you created a perfect bridge.
Or if someone mentions a popular restaurant in the city that you have never tried, you can say, "I have never tried that place, but I have heard great things about their food." The structure remains exactly the same. You catch the ball with your reaction phrase. Oh, really? Then you step forward with your safe bridge. I have never been, but I have heard great things about it.
Now we have survived the first 5 seconds. We reacted and we bridged, but the ball is still in our hands. If we stop speaking now, the other person has to figure out what to say next. And if they are also feeling a bit shy, the conversation dies right there. This brings us to the final and most important piece of the puzzle, step 3, the return serve. To keep a conversation flowing without doing all the hard work yourself, you must ask a return question. But not just any question. This is where many learners make a critical mistake. They ask closed questions. A closed question is a question that can be answered with a simple yes or no. For example, if someone says they are from Chicago and you ask, "Is it cold there?" They will say, "Yes, it is very cold." And boom, you're right back to silence.
You killed the conversation because you gave them a way to answer with one word. You want to force them to give you a long answer. You want to ask open questions.
Open questions usually start with what, how, or why. Instead of asking if it is cold in Chicago, you want to ask, what is the weather like there this time of year? This is a phenomenal return serve. It forces them to describe the seasons, the temperature, maybe even complain about the snow. They have to speak for at least 20 or 30 seconds, which gives you time to relax and listen.
Another incredible open question, especially when you meet someone at a conference, a hostel, or an event, is asking about their timeline. How long are you staying here for? This is so natural and opens up so many new branches of conversation. If they say they're staying for a week, you can ask what they plan to see. If they say they're leaving tomorrow, you can ask how their trip was.
Let us look at a few more universal return serve questions. These are questions you should memorize and keep in your back pocket for any situation. If you are talking about someone's job or career, do not ask, "Do you like your job?" That is a yes or no question. Instead, ask, "What is the best part about what you do?" Or, "How did you get into that field?"
People absolutely love answering the question, how did you get into that field? It invites them to tell their personal origin story. They will talk about their university days, their first job, their lucky breaks, and while they're talking, you're just nodding, smiling, and occasionally throwing in a reaction phrase like, "Oh wow," or "That makes sense." You're controlling the conversation without having to generate the content.
Let us do a quick review of the 3 steps before we put them all together in a real-time shadowing simulation. Step 1, you buy time and show interest with a reaction phrase. "Oh, really?" Step 2, you connect safely without needing deep knowledge using the safe bridge. "I've never been, but I've heard great things about the city." Step 3, you throw the ball back with an open question. "What is the weather like there this time of year?"
If you want to keep building these practical conversational habits, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Every week, we break down real-life situations like this so you can stop studying textbook grammar and start actually speaking with confidence. We want to help you build reflexes, not just memorize vocabulary lists.
Exactly. And the only way to build those reflexes is through practice. So we are going to do a 60-second shadowing simulation right now. I want you to imagine we are standing at a coffee table during a break at an international event. You have your coffee in your hand. I am standing across from you. I'm going to introduce myself and tell you where I am from.
Your job is to use the complete echo and ask method. You're going to say, "Oh, really?" Then, "I've never been, but I've heard great things about the city." And finally, "What is the weather like there this time of year?" Do not worry about making it perfect. Just focus on keeping a smooth, continuous flow. Speak out loud right after Lily finishes her sentence.
Here we go. "Hi, I do not think we have met yet. My name is Lily. I'm actually visiting here from Vancouver, Canada."
Now you speak. "Oh, really? I've never been, but I've heard great things about the city. What is the weather like there this time of year?"
Let us try it again. This time, I will not give you the text. You have to pull it from your memory. Keep that warm, interested intonation. "Hi, I do not think we have met yet. My name is Lily. I'm actually visiting here from Vancouver, Canada."
Let's do it one more time. This is how muscle memory is built. The more you say these words out loud in the safety of your own space, the easier they will slip out of your mouth when you're standing in front of a real stranger. "Hi, I do not think we have met yet. My name is Lily. I'm actually visiting here from Vancouver, Canada."
Excellent. Now, let's apply this exact same framework to a completely different scenario. The beauty of this method is that it is universal. Imagine you are logging into a Zoom meeting for work. You join the call, and there's only one other person there, a client from an office in another country. The host of the meeting is running late. You have to make small talk for 3 minutes.
This used to be my absolute nightmare. Staring at someone on a webcam in silence is somehow even worse than staring at them in person. But the framework saves you. The client says, "Hi, James. I'm calling in from our branch in Tokyo today." You do not panic. You use the method. You react. "Oh, really?" You bridge. "I've never visited the Tokyo office, but I've heard the team there is fantastic." You return serve. "How long have you been working with that branch?"
Notice how we slightly modified the bridge. Instead of saying, "I've heard great things about the city," James said, "I've heard the team there is fantastic." It's the exact same grammatical structure, just customized for a business setting. And his return serve, "How long have you been working with that branch?" is a perfect open question.
The client will likely talk for a minute or two about their history with the company, their role, and their colleagues. Whenever they take a breath or pause, you just drop in a reaction phrase. "That makes sense," or "Wow, that sounds busy." Then, when they finish their thought, you drop another open question. "What is the biggest project you're focusing on right now?"
You can literally keep this loop going indefinitely. Reaction, bridge, question. Listen, react, question. Listen, react, question. You're having a rich, professional, engaging conversation in English, and you're only speaking about 15% of the time. The other person walks away thinking you're a brilliant conversationalist simply because you allowed them to talk about their favorite subject, which is themselves.
Let us look at another environment where this is incredibly useful. Social events like dinner parties or language exchanges. Often you will meet people who have hobbies or passions that you know nothing about. Let us say you are chatting with someone in the kitchen at a party, and they tell you that they spend their weekends rock climbing.
If you are an A2 or B1 learner, you probably do not have the vocabulary to discuss rock climbing equipment, safety techniques, or mountain geography. Your brain realizes this vocabulary deficit and the panic sets in. But you do not need that vocabulary. You just need the framework. You react, "Oh, wow." You bridge, "I've never tried rock climbing, but I've heard it's an incredible workout." You return serve. "How did you first get into doing that?"
It's almost like a magic trick. You take your lack of knowledge and you turn it into a compliment. You are giving them the floor to explain their passion to you. And while they're explaining it, you are actively practicing your English listening skills in a low-stress environment. You're not stressing about what you're going to say next because your next move is always just another open question.
Let us practice the rock climbing scenario together. I will play the stranger at the party. I want you to react, bridge, and ask the return question out loud. Ready? "Yeah, so during the week I work in IT, but on the weekends I'm really passionate about rock climbing. I try to go to the mountains every chance I get."
Now you speak. Oh, wow. I've never tried rock climbing, but I've heard it's an incredible workout. How did you first get into doing that? That was great. The key is to deliver it smoothly, without rushing. When people get nervous in a second language, they tend to speed up. They try to spit the words out as fast as possible so they can hide again. But speaking faster actually makes you sound less confident and leads to more pronunciation mistakes.
Take your time. Let the reaction phrase breathe. "Oh, really?" Give it a tiny pause before you move into the bridge. "I've never been, but I've heard great things about it." Pacing is half the battle in sounding natural. Native speakers pause all the time. They use filler words, they take a moment to think. You are allowed to take up space in the conversation.
We should also address what happens when the other person uses this method on you, because eventually a polite conversationalist will throw the ball back to your side of the court. They will answer your question about their city, and then they will say, "What about you? Where are you visiting from?"
When the spotlight swings back to you, the goal is not to deliver a 10-minute monologue. You answer their question simply, and then you use the exact same strategy. You throw the ball back again. If they ask where you're from, you say, "I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been living in Portugal for the last few years. Have you ever traveled to South America?"
You answer briefly, give a little bit of detail to be polite, and then immediately ask another open question. This ping-pong effect is what constitutes a natural conversation. You don't have to carry the heavy weight of being the sole entertainer. You're just tossing the ball back and forth.
It's also important to give yourself grace. Sometimes conversations just die, even when you do everything right. Sometimes the other person is tired, or they're naturally very quiet, or they're just not in the mood to chat. If you use the reaction, the bridge, and the return serve, and they still give you a one-word answer, that's not your English failing. That's just human nature.
That is such a vital point. As language learners, we tend to blame ourselves for every awkward silence. We think, oh, my grammar must have been wrong, or my accent was too thick, or I used the wrong word. But native speakers have awkward silences with other native speakers every single day. Don't take it personally. If the conversation naturally fizzles out, you just smile and politely move on.
But armed with the echo and ask method, you'll find that those awkward silences happen significantly less often. You now have a tangible tool, a structural safety net that you can deploy the second you feel that panic rising in your chest. You don't have to hide in the bathroom anymore. You can stand your ground, smile, and take control of the interaction.
So, let us review everything we covered today. First, we shattered the fascinating story myth. You don't need to be interesting, you just need to be an interested mirror. Second, we learned how to buy time with a reaction phrase, using upward intonation to show warmth. Oh, really? That makes sense.
Third, we mastered the safe bridge, the ultimate phrase to connect when you lack knowledge or vocabulary. I've never been, but I've heard great things about it. And finally, we learned how to sustain the momentum by throwing the ball back with an open return serve. What's the weather like there? How long are you staying? How did you get into that field?
Challenge yourself to use a language exchange app today and keep a conversation going for 3 full minutes using only reactions and return questions without bringing up a single new topic yourself. You have the tools now, so step confidently into the silence and let the other person do the talking.
Watch our next episode on the 3 polite phrases you need to naturally exit the conversation when you finally want to leave. And we will see you there.